Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission meeting for Thursday, September 7th, 2017. We are in Santa Barbara with remote from Santa Maria. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Seves?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman? Here. Commissioner Ishkanian? Here. Commissioner Lavanino? Here. Commissioner Morehouse? Here. Commissioner Richardson? Here. Commissioner Stark? Here. Commissioner Waterfield?
Here.
Commissioner Welt? And Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Welt is absent.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stark will be voting in his absence.
So would you all please rise as Mr. Richardson leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your hands over your heart. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 3rd?
So moved. Second.
We have first and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, we don't need roll call. Any opposed? Seeing none, so passed. Do we have any members of the public that request to speak to this agency with that items that are not on today's agenda?
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, we have no request to speak on general public comment.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Does any of the commissioners wish to pull the item on the consent calendar?
Move we accept the consent calendar.
Been moved and second to accept the consent calendar, which is a report of disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Next.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 1 is to approve and adopt a resolution acknowledging the results of the Los Olivos Community Services District protest hearing and directing the Board of Supervisors to direct county elections to conduct the necessary elections on behalf of the proposed district.
Thank you. Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Hood, LAFCO Executive Officer. As I reported to you last month at your meeting, we had a protest hearing June 21st and accepted 80 valid protests, or 16.39% of the registered voters in the within the boundaries of the proposed Los Olivos CSD. So they were insufficient to terminate proceedings. The next step is pursuant to the government code that we have to take additional actions now if no majority protest exists, which it didn't. We shall order the formation subject to approval of the voters and approval of a special tax pursuant to subdivision such and such in the government code. So also your commission is required to order the formation and direct the Board of Supervisors to direct county elections to hold the necessary election on behalf of the proposed district. We have attached a resolution, and a second amended resolution was sent out to you last week that made some different amendments to the resolution, and Mr. Dillon can talk about that. But I would recommend that you approve the resolution that sets the election, asks the board to direct the county elections to set the formation election. And we will be coming back to you next month with the impartial analysis, the ballot measures included with the resolution. So at this point, I just recommend that you approve the resolution. I think Mr. Dillon may have a comment, but that is my recommendation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Mr. Dillon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. We were still getting comments from the elections office when we docketed the LAFCO staff report. So the additional measures in the resolution primarily reflect very ministerial type determinations that should go in your resolution requesting the county hold the election. And those include things like a minor statement that we affirmatively already said if the tax passes by 2/3 vote, it's approved, but we did not say if the tax fails, the proposed district is not formed, and that should be explicitly stated, and it is in the revised resolution. Also, we're supposed to designate the method of tax collection, and so we did that. It would be the regular county assessment roll, just to leave that question, checked. And then there's supposed to be a special account if the tax passes, a special account set up by the district, and they are required to file an annual report pursuant to Government Code Section 50075.3. And then the final thing we did was catching up with the process. We had referred to an attachment in the original resolution regarding the boundaries. Well, in the revised resolution, we put in the map that reflects your final action on the boundaries when you approve the formation. And you may recall the proposed boundaries were actually broader than the boundaries you approved. You ended up, pursuant to some comments from the County Planning and Development Department, excluding undeveloped ag land outside the urban boundaries, but not excluding ag land where a school is already operating and which is consistent with the zoning there, but it's really kind of an urban use. So that concludes the changes.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Do the commissioners have any questions of either Mr. Dillon or Mr. Hood? Did I have a... Okay. Commissioner Hartman.
Yes, there's a new California Supreme Court ruling about majority versus 2/3 votes for initiatives. Do we have any sense of how that will affect this?
It looks pretty certain that the recent case does not apply because that case, which creates a lot of confusion, it concerns ballot measures put on the ballot for a tax where it's put on by petition of the voters. And in this particular case, we are not putting something on the ballot pursuant to a petition by the voters, rather pursuant to Cortesian Acts, yet a petition, yes, from the community with a certain number of members signing that petition, but that just initiated the LAFCO proceeding. Then LAFCO held the proceedings, approved formation, had a protest hearing, and then the protest hearing failed, so then LAFCO has a duty to put it on to order the county to put it on the ballot. So the short answer is we don't have that situation here.
Any other questions? We do have a speaker slip.
Chair Seves and members of the commission, we have one request to speak on this item, and that's Lisa Palmer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I just wanted to take a moment at this juncture in this process. It's a quiet room today. But just to thank you for your attention and diligence as we move this from your commission to the county and get the election underway. I just want to assure you that our working group is at the ready to, after all the time and effort we put into this, to ensuring success as we move into the election chapter of the formation process. So I just wanted to thank each of you, your staff, and also our county supervisor for your guidance and help in this process, and glad we're where we are today. Thanks. And we did have our legal counsel look at that ruling over the weekend as well and came to the same conclusion. So just for the record, thank you.
That's good to know. Thank you. No other speaker slips? Okay, do we have a motion to move forward?
I'll second it.
Okay, for this voting, Commissioner Hartman will be the voting member. Because Mr. Lavanille stepped off a moment. Okay, we motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. I'm sorry, we're not required to have a roll call vote because we don't have a voting member up north in Santa Maria. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Dillon, there's a question that it should have been a roll call vote for a resolution.
I know some cities and districts, per their own procedures, sometimes require that. And I know you also have a concern about that generally, but that's often not the procedure followed by the county or cities or LAFCO. So, but you know, if a district does do it that way and they want to do it that way, I certainly, appreciate that position.
All right, next.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, business item number 2 is to assign voting delegates for the 2017 Cal-LAFCO Annual Conference.
Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Chairman, this is a pretty procedural matter. We have several members of the Commission that will be attending the Cal-LAFCO conference in October, and it's necessary that you appoint a voting delegate and an alternate. Generally, and you can select whoever you want, but generally it could be the chairman, the vice chair, something like that, or somebody else that may be attending if they don't plan on attending, but that's up to you how you assign that, make that assignment.
Commission, what's your pleasure?
Let's go with tradition and call it the chair and the vice chair.
Is Mr. Well attending the conference? Yes. Okay. If that's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Can be moved and seconded. The chair and vice chair will be the voting delegates. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passed unanimously. Next.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, informational item number 1 is to receive and file a report on the 2017 Cal-LAFCO Annual Conference in San Diego, October 25th through October 27th, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Hood, Executive Officer again. We have a good turnout in San Diego for the annual conference at the Bahia Hotel, October 25th through 27th. Registration has closed, early registration is closed at August 31st, but it's open until October 6th for those who are willing to or wanting to attend. There was some issues with the hotel, and not as many rooms were available because of some overbookings by certain LAFCOs around the state, booking out blocks of rooms. So there are some hotels adjacent that some of our staff and commissioners will be staying in an adjacent hotel, and Jacqueline has a list of those, and we have made arrangements for accommodations. There's also a mobile workshop that's going to be held on Wednesday morning, and you recall that last year we tried to get the desal plant as part of the in Santa Barbara as part of the mobile workshop, and now there is a desal plant in Carlsbad that is many times bigger than the local desal plant, and also they call the Encina Power Station, which is right next to the desal plant, that will those of you who signed up for the mobile workshop will be attending. So it looks like it will be a very good conference. I'm sure it will not be as good as the conference we had last year when we hosted the Cal-LAFCO conference in Santa Barbara, but I think it will be a good conference. And happy to answer any questions you might have. Jacqueline has the accommodations for hotels available if you want to find out more about that. And I know that Mr. Dillon is now planning on attending. So, and that's all I had, basically. And accommodations and travel can also be arranged individually or through Santa Barbara LAFCO.
Thank you. Any questions from the Commission? Thank you very much. Next.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, informational item number 2 is to receive and file the Little Hoover Commission final report.
I've been updating the Commission on the Little Hoover Commission hearings that have been held, and the final report was released on October 30th. I've sent you copies of that in an email, and the agenda packet includes the draft report that is pretty much the same except for some corrections and typos and some other minor issues. So it does provide, and I can go through all of the recommendations, but your Commission has the report. The press release from Cal-LAFCO said that the Commission recommended one-time grant funding by the legislature for LAFCOs, and we had a discussion about a share of the property tax, I think, a month or so ago, and that we didn't think was a good thing to do, but one-time grant funding to help LAFCOs with the most urgent dissolutions and consolidations of special districts. They also were very concerned with bypassing LAFCO. There's a list of Assembly bills and Senate bills in the Little Hoover Commission report, including AB 3 from a year or two ago. They do not like special districts and LAFCOs being circumvented, and that was one of the recommendations in the report. And Cal LAFCO looks upon this as very favorable, and I can go through some of the recommendations if you wish. And it's much better, I think, than it started out being, because special districts are treated very well, and there's a lot of issues that were talked about with LAFCOs that are now, very positive in the report that SB 448 that your commission supported last month is also recommended for approval and signature. And there's a bill, AB 979 by Assemblyman Lackey that your commission also supported, that was signed last week. And it allows special districts ease for those LAFCOs that do not have special district representation, makes it easier for them to be seated on local LAFCOs. And I think it's still roughly half of the LAFCOs around the state don't have special district representation. But something else that the Assembly bill did, and this is an aside, it's not part of the Little Hoover Commission, but 979, it also said that upon a written request from the special, one or more members of the Special District Selection Committee, the LAFCO executive officer can call a meeting to appoint representatives to the RDA Oversight Committee. And so that will be part of our election that will be happening in January to select a representative, special districts, and also representative to the RDA Oversight Committee. I went through all of the recommendations again today, and seemed to be very positive. I know the special districts have been involved in this, in the final report for the Little Hoover Commission, and we were discussing since Pedro Nava is a local resident, that we may even invite him to one of our meetings in the next month or two to talk about the report and to explain the process. And I think that would be a very positive move. I'll see if he's available for the October meeting, and if not, we can follow it up a month or so later. So I don't have anything else. The Little Hoover Commission talks about healthcare issues, talk about climate change, and placing the onus on water purveyors to accommodate fires because of inadequate water, that we need all to be prepared, and cities and districts and county making adequate use of water for fire protection. I think that's, without rambling too much, is kind of a far-reaching report, and I'd be happy to hear from any commissioners that might have more of an insight into this, but I think it's been very positive, and Cal LAFCO appreciates the input from the Special Districts Association and from the chairman of the commission. So I think it's worked out pretty well, a lot better than we anticipated at the very outset.
Thank you. Mr. Stark.
Yes, I do have a question about one of the recommendations. It specifically is recommendation number 9, which says every special district, actually it says page 5 of Exhibit A. Actually, the question I have is on page 6. They're recommending that every district have a website with a link to the LAFCO and any state agency providing oversight. And it goes on to recommend that every LAFCO should have a website that has a list of the special districts and links to the different agencies within the county service areas with copies of their municipal service review. And my question is, do we have anything resembling that now on our website, and is it possible to figure out how we might get there?
We do. We have all of the municipal service reviews available and a link to all of the special districts and cities on our website. It may not be as user-friendly as the Little Hoover Commission would like to see, which may be one link on our homepage, or one link that provides access and is more definitive in what the link would do and what happens when you click on it. So we can take a look at that, but it is available on our SB LAFCO website.
Excellent. If my memory is correct, ordinarily increments of user friendliness require some outlay of funds to get there. So hopefully we can get pretty friendly without spending a whole lot of money.
We did a pretty good job of updating our website a couple of years ago, and it was kind of minimal expense, and I think the website looks really good now. It's pretty user-friendly, but maybe not as user-friendly as the report recommends.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank, from here, Kyle Packham and the staff at CSDA, along with multiple special districts that provided a significant amount of information to the state legislature, specifically about special districts. It was certainly, once again, a learning process for many of our state legislators to really learn what special districts are about. I know there's concerns dating back from 2010 and before with the lack of oversight and the lack of transparency. And one of the things that they found out is how in the forefront special districts are with climate change. And, you know, again, the staff at CASA, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, provided some pretty significant information about how many of the agencies are in front of the issue of climate change. And I guess where special districts can probably get a little bit better is public awareness of that, providing more information to the public on just everything they are doing. But, you know, not everybody sits down at the end of the evening and goes on the website and say, oh, what's the sanitary district up to today? You know, so, but the information is out there. And our special districts, especially here in Santa Barbara County, in cooperation with the local chapter, SBCSDA, have done a really good job at working on the issue of transparency and getting the information out to the public. So I also like to applaud our local chapter in doing that. Also, just a couple highlights that I thought, you know, I felt were important was, number one, the chair, the letter that Pedro Navo did, and I'll quote from one of his paragraphs. The LAFCO process may not be working as it could and should in every corner of the state, but special districts remain best served by local decision making. To that end, the Commission recommends the legislature curtail its practice of bypassing the local process. But he hit the nail on the head with that, and in fact followed up in the executive summary with recommendation number 1 was the legislature and the governor should curtail a growing practice of enacting bills to override LAFCO deliberative processes and decide local issues regarding special district boundaries and operations. Now, this is all derived from them taking a look back in the 1960s. Why were LAFCOs created? And LAFCOs were created back in the 1960s because the legislature was making decisions, local decisions, and they felt back then that local decisions needed to be made locally, not in Sacramento. So it's good to see this on paper. It's good to see that it came through the Little Hoover Commission, and I do hope that our state legislature begins to act on this and roll back and allow local decisions to be made locally, not legislated from Sacramento. And I really like this report.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so this item's filed. On to commissioner requests or future agenda items. Any commissioners have anything? Mr. Geyer.
Yeah, I just wondered what the status was of how many MSRs we still have to do.
Is that a question? We have, as you know, we did all of the cities. We did 7 of the 8 cities. We had one city that was basically wanting to review its boundaries, city of Goleta. We have majority of the independent special districts completed. A couple of those did change, minor changes, but mostly they were reaffirming the existing MSRs and spheres of influence. We have several districts that requested some changes, and so we will be looking at those, and seems like this is something that we should probably bring back to your commission and try and get the remainder of the special districts done and maybe look again at the city of Goleta. So I'll be bringing that back and maybe with a schedule sometime in the next month or month and a half, 2 months.
Okay, so there's no other requests for future agenda items. Mr. Hood, your report.
The only thing I was going to mention is I sent out an email to the commissioners a week or so ago about the appointment to the RDA Oversight Committee. And there was also a spreadsheet that was prepared by the County Auditor's Office. And LAFCO's role basically in this appointment is to call the, as I mentioned in the Lackey bill, to call the Special District Selection Committee meeting, and the appointment to the Oversight Committee as well as the appointment to LAFCO's would be made by election of the special districts. I sent out nominations and collect the ballots at the meeting. I point out that I could also do this by mail ballot or by email ballot, but that doesn't seem to be direction that the special districts would like to go in, so we will call a meeting unless I hear differently. And the question as far as the appointment to the RDA Oversight Committee is who is eligible to sit on that, which special districts. And the special districts that were part of the redevelopment agency boundaries, and I identified, I think, 14 special districts that were impacted by redevelopment agencies. And you'll recall that the tax increment that is frozen for redevelopment agencies by the cities and local agencies that overlap the RDA boundaries. And if it's a city or a county, the tax increment goes to the county or the city. So those districts that lost money from redevelopment agencies have been identified by the county auditor, and I think there's 14 districts that would be eligible, that lost money through the redevelopment agencies and would be eligible for appointment by the special districts to this one seat on the Oversight Committee. So we will be refining that. There's some additional work that, since I mail out the ballots and who gets the ballots and count the votes, that's LAFCO's involvement, but the appointment, as I emphasize, is not the LAFCO appointment, it's the special district appointment. So we want to make sure that who is eligible to vote and gets the ballots is, will have a chance to sit after they're appointed by the special districts selection committee on this RDA oversight board that will become effective July 1, 2018. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention.
Mr. Morehouse, then Mr. Guyer.
Is there also an alternate appointed to that in the event? Is there ability to appoint an alternate?
No.
I don't believe so. I'm not sure if there's alternates to the proposed RDA oversight committee or if there has been in the past. I think it's a single appointment.
Okay, because my concern with that would be if the special districts get together, appoint somebody, and then as it happens from time to time, that person isn't able to fulfill their term on that committee, is it then fall back to the governor to appoint somebody, or does the special district committee reconvene and elect somebody new?
That's not really clear, but I would think that if somebody, is incapacitated or leaves, the area and just can't serve as the special district appointment, we could call a special meeting. But I'm not sure that that's specified in the.
We have one in Goleta. There is no alternate because the different entities appoint a member. Like the city of Goleta appoints a member. If there's a vacancy occurs, then that appointing entity would then reappoint somebody else.
The city.
Wherever it is, we have a county rep, we have a city rep, I think we have a public rep. There's like 5 or 6 people that sit on that board. But they're there at the request of that particular appointing authority. Mr. Guyer.
You mentioned mailing out a ballot. We're not going to mail out a ballot, though, right? For this, it's actually just an election, just the same as a special district selection committee.
Well, it could. Many LAFCOs do elections for the special districts. And for the, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do it for the RDA. Oversight Committee. And here's the situation, and just, this is kind of getting off the subject a little bit, but it's very difficult to get a quorum of the special districts. There's 34 special districts. We need, 18, say, to attend the meeting. Sometimes we have had meetings that we wait for people to come and say they're going to come, and sometimes they leave early. It's not as much of a problem, and I don't have an issue with that. But in some counties, LAFCOs like LA County, where you have hundreds of special districts, and if they did it physically and met in a location, it would be very difficult to get a quorum.
Right.
So the mail ballot seems to work for them, and it could work for us too if we wanted to do it that way.
But the selection committee takes a vote to do that, to have it by ballot.
Right. Yeah. LAFCO wouldn't do it. It would be the
right.
selection committee, and it's entirely possible to do it that way. But generally, what we do in Santa Barbara County is we combine the meeting with one of the monthly meetings of the local chapter of CSDA, and it seems to work fine. But again, that meeting is not attended. I think of the 34 special districts, maybe 10 or 12 usually attend the monthly meetings, and so we spend a lot of time, calling the special districts for the city selection committee meeting. Jacqueline calls, I call, I send emails, I make personal requests that they show up. Where if they were to vote by a mailed ballot, then their special district could vote for someone and mail it back in. They wouldn't need to be physically present. So I only point that out because it seems to work pretty well around the state with many LAFCOs.
Mr. Morehouse.
Yeah, our local chapter discussed this the other day, and we have not had a quorum problem the last several times. I know the first time that I threw my name out to become a LAFCO commissioner, there were 8 people running. So it was very well attended. And since that time, which is quite a while ago, we have not had a quorum issue where we've had to leave and then do it by mail. So I know that the chapter feels that it's best that we coordinate it with the monthly chapter meeting, which have been well attended lately. And that part of getting the word out is that the chapter's there to help you. And that we feel it's important that we start the process early, because some special districts only meet once a month. So they need to know that they need to vote. They need to appoint somebody to be the representative, and they need to appoint somebody to be the alternate and come to that meeting, and so that their board can discuss it well in advance so that they know who's coming to the meeting. And so long as we get the message out early, and sometimes often, we should have no problem having a quorum and coordinating it with the monthly chapter meeting.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hood? All right. Okay, then our next meeting will be October 5th in Santa Maria with a remote from Santa Barbara, so this meeting's adjourned.